Hey y'all, Eric here. And no, it's been a minute since I've done a video, but I've been kind of busy and losing track of time, and it's not like me not to do a video each day or every other day. But it has been a minute, so I apologize for that. Um, but I had I guess I would call it a class that was put on by the Carolinas LGBT Chamber of Commerce here in Charlotte, and we were talking about AI and leveraging social media. But before that, the president gave some announcements about some of the bills that were talked about this week now that the North Carolina General Assembly has come back from their vacation. And they're calling this session, this mini session, I guess, the override session because Governor Stein vetoed a lot of the bills, over 10, and they're back trying to override the majority of them. And in the Senate, that actually happens because the Senate is actually override proof. It's veto proof. Because anytime the government vetoes and the bill goes back to the Senate, they have enough enough Republican votes to override that veto, which is essentially what happened on every single one of the bills that Governor Stein vetoed. Then it goes over to the House. So the Republicans no longer have a supermajority. They actually need, in order to pass something, they need, particularly with overriding a veto, they need 2/3 of the electorate to override the veto, which means they need every single Republican vote and they need at least one Democrat. Well, during this period, they got their one on some and they actually got some more. And because of the type of bills they are, there are now calls for these particularly Democrats to be primaried and removed from office. And I am in total agreement. And one of them is actually, two of them are actually from Mecklenburg County where I live, and they are Democrats in name only. And so I pulled up a state website that is tracking this information, and we are now calling for these people during the election to be primaried and booted out of office. So I'm going to show you the website here in just a second. It's called North Carolina Newsline, and North Carolina lawmakers override Stein's vetoes as key House Democrats defect. Now, this was actually as of yesterday, the 29th, this article, and I did look at one particular bill. Today, the House was supposed to vote on the Freedom to Carry bill, which means anyone 18 will be able to conceal and carry without a permit. And there's a lot of contention around that. The Republicans say that North Carolina, this bill will align North Carolina with 28 other states. Well, just because other states are doing it doesn't mean that North Carolina has to do it. Exactly why does an 18-year-old need to be carrying a gun, whether it's school or into a club or wherever the 18-year-old is going? Why do they need to be packing heat? And especially without a permit, without any training, without paying a fee, which stops a lot of people from getting a gun in the first place. Why did they need that? So, but as of this recording, there was no vote. But there were other important vetoes that were voted upon, and so we're going to go through this. The main culprit in all this is this person. Her name is Carla Cunningham. She is a House representative from District 106 here in Mecklenburg County. In fact, her district is next door to mine. I'm actually in District 107. My rep, Aisha, did the right thing, and she voted against all of these that we're about to talk about. And so I'm going to skip over this and come down And here is the tracking part. Republicans who control the General Assembly aim to override Josh Stein's vetoes. And there's actually 2 pages of this. So on page 1, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And on page 2, there are 4. So we're talking about 14 vetoes. So the ones that have not been voted on by the House yet are the concealed to carry one, the requiring state agencies to sign ICE cooperation agreements, the ban diversity, equity, and inclusion in K through 12 schools. And the House also has not voted on banning diversity, equity, and inclusion practices in the UNC system in community colleges. Now, neither house has voted on banning cities and counties from further regulation of pet stores. I don't even know what that's about. I guess they don't want cities and counties to stop puppy mills, I guess. And then we have the banning diversity, equity, and inclusion in state agencies. State agencies meaning the DMV, the notary division, the insurance division, anything that has to do with the state, the sheriff's department, anything, any state department employees. They want to ban diversity, equity, and inclusion. And banning diversity, equity, and inclusion is simply code for whitewashing. There, I said it. But there are some, 8 bills that 4 Democrats were able to help the Republicans pass. The first one, you can scratch your head on this one, is Senate Bill 254. It changes the oversight structure of charter schools and gives that power to the Board of General Assembly appointees. So whoever the General Assembly would appoint, taking that away from the Superintendent for Public Instruction, which is Mo Green, a Democrat, who was elected statewide. You need to keep that in mind. The cabinet members are elected by the state, not districts, but the whole state, which means Mo Green got a majority of North Carolinians to vote him into office, yet the Republicans want to take power away from him, just like they took power away from the Attorney General, Jeff Jackson, because he is also a Democrat, and from Josh Stein winning the governorship because he is also a Democrat. 3 of the Democrats in question voted yes on this. That's Shelley Willingham, Carla Cunningham, and Cecil Brockman. All Democrats voted yes. The next one has to do with Duke Energy. Senate Bill 266 says repeals emissions goal for Duke Energy and allows utility to increase rates for construction costs. That was voted yes by Carla Cunningham, Nassif Majid, and Shelley Willingham. What this bill actually says is that it's going to allow Duke Energy to raise the rates of all Duke Energy customers by 10%, and that money will help Duke Energy build a new power plant that the majority of the Duke Energy customers will have no direct benefit from. And once that power plant is built, do you think those rates will come back down? Not in the history of Duke Energy, when they were Duke Power, did they ever return money to customers. The next one is Senate Bill number 416, which bars public agencies from collecting or releasing unnecessary information about donors, members, and volunteers. Voting yes were Shelley Willingham and Carla Cunningham. Again, it only took one, but these 2 voted yes. And I don't know why they would ban that, unless they are trying to keep people out of trouble, I guess, who are doing nefarious things. I don't know. But I'm scratching my head on that one too. Then we come down to House Bill 193. Shelley Willingham was the lone Democratic vote, but again, all they needed was one that allows employees or volunteers in private schools to carry concealed firearms. Currently, you have to have a permit to carry a concealed firearm. However, what about the background checks? Because not everybody who is eligible to own a gun should own a gun. So next on page 2, we have House Bill 318, updates the 2024 immigration law requiring local sheriffs to comply with ICE detainer requests. Detainer is in quotations. Carla Cunningham alone is on this. Essentially, what this means, and she did an impassioned speech to talk about why she's voting this way, and I quote, not all cultures are equal, and these people, when they come to this country, they need to assimilate and be like Americans. Really, is that not what they have been saying about black people who've been in this country since its inception? Have they not, against their will, I might add, and have they not been doing the same thing to us on a yearly, decade basis since then? Apparently, she doesn't recollect that. But what this actually means, the detainer means, if someone is arrested under the immigration law as it is, and they're detained by Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Department, when the time expires on that detainer, this law says that the sheriff must keep them another 48 hours to give ICE time to come get them. My question is, why can't ICE come get them while they're in custody in the first place? If in fact it's been verified that they've done something wrong, and in fact they are here in this country illegally. My answer is because the news, whether you watch Fox, CNN, News Nation, any of them, there are all kind of reports about ICE running amok and just doing whatever they want to do, including rounding up American citizens thinking that they are illegal immigrants and finding out after the fact, and in some cases after the fact means they've already been deported, and then are talking about, oh, we made a mistake. And yet she voted for this. Carla Cunningham voted for this. So maybe she has a short memory. Then we have Shelley and Carla again on House Bill 402, requires lawmakers to vote on any state regulations that would cost more than $20 million over 5 years. I don't get this. Y'all hold votes on big bills anyway. Why does this need to be codified into law? It may have something to do with the amount of money that is needed to spend on Western North Carolina, because a lot of people are saying to get them back, it'll never be the same. It will never be the same because of that destruction. Eastern North Carolina still hasn't come back. And now the middle of the state is having to clean up and come back from the flooding that just happened recently. And they want to talk about having the General Assembly vote on massive amounts of money, when the state has been begging for massive amounts of money to be approved. So I don't understand that. Then Shelley, again, alone, expands state auditors' ability to investigate publicly funded agencies. So this actually is a no-brainer. Why would she vote for this? So let's just break this down. Why does the state auditor given investigation power on publicly funded agencies? So let's talk about what an auditor does and what the other person that I'm about to bring into the conversation does. So an auditor audits, and normally when you think about an auditor, we think about an auditor auditing financials. They can do physical auditing or they can do electronic auditing. In fact, it doesn't even have to be financials. They can do an electronic audit on email files, on text files, anything like electronic communications, electronic payments back in the financials. That's what auditors do. And depending on their level of being an auditor, they have a wide expansion of power. Now, to investigate someone for nefarious things, who do you think is charged with doing investigations? That would be the Attorney General. The Attorney General carries out the investigations and carries out the results of those investigations while working with other agencies. There is absolutely no reason that the North Carolina auditor, who again was voted by the majority of the state, and the auditor just so happens to be a Republican, there's no reason that power needs to be taken from Jeff Jackson, the Attorney General, who is a Democrat, and given to the auditor, who is a Republican. There's no reason for that. And then finally, we come to Nassif Majid again. And in this case, it seems to me that Nassif, who seems to be an angry rep, because at the beginning of the year, when they were installed for this General Assembly in North Carolina, he was interviewed and saying, I'm not an automatic check. I will vote how according that I see the information. He was talking about people telling him that he should be voting with the Democratic caucus on all things, and he said, not so fast. And I say that because of this particular bill, House Bill 805. House Bill 805, and I'll bring it up for you to see. House Bill 805 recognizes male and female sexes under state law, restricts changing sex designation on birth certificates, etc. He was the lone Democratic vote that got this passed into law. And so essentially what this bill means is that the state is only going to recognize at birth males and at birth females. They are not going to recognize transsexuals, and they are not going to recognize non-binary people, and they are not going to recognize intersex people. No matter how many scientific reports come out to show the physical existence of these people and the mental health reports of these people. And so if someone goes to the DMV, because we're in the era of the real ID, which means you have to show all these documents to prove that you are who you say you are. And I have a friend who is a trans male. His name is James. James is supposed to go into the DMV, show his social security card, show his birth certificate. But James's birth certificate, as it is written, says that his name is Jessica and that he is a female. But James has a full beard, mustache, and goatee. Is a very, very muscular guy. And when he walks into the DMV, I wouldn't be surprised if they raised an eyebrow saying, well, you say that you're James, but this says that you're Jessica. And so then he's going to have to explain. And because of this law, they actually can turn him away, because he would have to get a driver's license. On the way that this bill reads, he would have to get a driver's license in the name of Jessica and his gender on the driver's license would have to say female. Same thing with the passports. That is still going through the court system. Hasn't made it to the Supreme Court that I'm aware of yet. But same thing. It is a disavowalment of trans, non-binary, and intersex people. And so, but that's not the end of it. Not the end of it. But I will say this. Nassif and Carla should just go ahead and do one of two things. Change their registration from Democrat to either independent or Republican. Because at least as an independent, they can save face. They won't win any races, but they can save face. But just go ahead and do what Tricia Cox said. Tricia Cox said, who was from, represents the Matthews area, and I want to say Ballantyne too, almost lost her race. When she got elected as a Democrat, then immediately changed her party affiliation to Republican and stated that she was a Republican, and then got reelected. Barely. Her election was contested twice, and she won by mere votes. Mere votes. But at least she was honest in what she was saying, for the most part. For the most part. Carla and Nassif, along with Shelley and Cecil, sheep in wolves' clothing, or wolves in sheep's clothing, I should say. Wolves in sheep's clothing. I would have more respect for them if they would just join the party that they're aligned with, considering the number of overrides that they voted for. When the bill actually first came up, they all voted against them. So here's the call to action. Like I said, Nassif, I believe, is a representative of Winston-Salem or maybe Greensboro. He needs to be primaried and voted out of office. Carla Cunningham in Mecklenburg County in District 106 needs to be primaried and voted out of office. Shelley Willingham and Cecil Brockman need to be primaried in their districts and then voted out of office. And you say, well, Eric, what can I do? I'm not able to go to protest. I can't go to Raleigh to talk about my disdain. I can call, but to what end will that be? Well, I didn't bother calling because it would go straight to voicemail and I wouldn't get a response back. Now, the same thing can be said about emails, but their emails are a public record because they're public officials. So I created an email and I sent it to them. Let me see if I can bring this up. I may not have it anymore. I'm looking at my Word document because I don't know if I saved it or not. I don't think I did. I really don't. I don't think I did. Let me check one other thing. But essentially, I addressed Carla and I addressed Nassif. I would show you my email, the sent email that I sent, but I just don't want all of YouTube to have my email address. So, in fact, I had recorded this earlier and it was showing my email address and I deleted that video. I had to delete my video anyway because I was having sound problems. But essentially, that email addressed to them separately, we're talking about their votes. On I'm sorry, I'm looking at my Copilot to see if it's saved, because I actually had Copilot write the initial email and then I tweaked it and then sent it out and Copilot is usually good about saving it, but it didn't save it this time. So, but anyway, so I called Carla out about ICE, and I called her out about the superintendent of instruction, and I called Nassif out about what we call the trans bill and the gun bill, or the Duke Power bill, Actually, Carla about the Duke Power bill as well. And I sent those emails. And like I was telling an old friend of mine that we just reconnected on Facebook, that we all, he's a father, he has 2 kids, only had adopted one when I actually left Charlotte, came back to Charlotte 11 years later, and he has adopted a second son, and he's taking care of his mom. So he has a lot on his plate. But even still, all of us can do something. And so I sent those emails. I have a YouTube channel where I'm doing a video, and I ask people to like and to share, and if they're so inclined, to please subscribe so that more people can see my videos and the videos themselves can be shared. And most of them are political in nature, but this is something that we can do. We're at the beginnings and into the midterm cycle. This is not just for the federal level. This is for your local elections. House of Representatives are up for election, and every 2 years. And as you can see with these overrides, it matters who's in those seats. It matters who's a who's a representative, and it matters who's a state senator. It matters who's sitting in that governor's office. It matters who's sitting in the governor's cabinet. It matters who is in, like one of the things in my neighborhood is dealing with, that I'm doing the research on for the board here for the HOA, is that we're caught between a rock and a hard place. The past boards didn't do their due diligence to keep up with things, and now we're at a point now where our roads need serious help. But because we are still unincorporated and we're sitting in the middle of District 2 without any representation and without really essentially any help except on our own to fix our stop signs, to fix our roads, to fix our sidewalks, to get the ADA mats put back down on the sidewalk corners, all of that, and that costs money. And we're exploring voluntary annexation into the city, but if we get denied, the only choice to get these things fixed is to raise HOA dues. And some people aren't paying as it is. So that presents another issue. And so it matters. We could have been annexed already had it not been for the Republican General Assembly back in 2008 or 2010, who created a bill to stop Charlotte and Raleigh-Durham from their annexation plans. And so since then, there hasn't been a General Assembly that was actually on the side of the Democrats, who are on the side of neighborhoods, to actually rescind that law or to change that law. And so these neighborhoods that are on the northwest side, which are primarily African American, we're having to fight because of that. And this old adage, well, I don't want to be annexed because my taxes will go up. Well, your taxes will go up because the services that we need have to be paid for. And either you pay for them out of your pocket or your taxes actually get paid. We get into the pot of all the people in the city to have these things done. And that's a long road itself, which is more education than it is anything else. And so all of this is tied to elections. It matters who are your state officials. It matters who are your county officials. It matters who your city officials are. And it most certainly matters who your federal representatives are. And like I said, I say all of this to say everybody can do something. So I'll end this video like I do on most of my videos. Hashtag 2026 midterm elections. Hashtag 2025 elections on some things in your local jurisdictions. Hashtag elections matter. See you on the next video.